Same old trouble, villains always knocking at the door. Pretty pictures on the page, but nothing ever stays the same.
Thank you, Vandello, and welcome once again to Graphically Novel. My name is Josh Wasta, a.k.a. Fallout Fury, and with me is What If I Was Nice to You? Oh, what if you were anyone but who you are? And that is my co-host, Bear, is here.
That was, what if that was almost as creepy as the last season where he was complimenting me.
Yeah, like what would happen to the universe?
Thank you. And with us, as always, the lovely and talented, I don't want to say our Dark Phoenix because I don't want to insult her like that.
Because I'll fucking kill you all.
That's okay, fine. Our Dark Phoenix.
I love you.
Our Captain Carter.
I love you.
Our Captain Carter. No, our Black Widow.
There you go.
Is the lovely and talented, the Baronessa, Ms. Jennifer Howland.
Thank you. And it is my distinct pleasure each session to introduce our guest. And today we have a very dear friend of mine, Andrew Behrens. Thank you for joining us, Andrew.
Thank you very much, but you must be getting weak in your old age, them not calling you Dark Phoenix, because that's always how I've known you.
Well, no, I didn't say they shouldn't call me that. I said I'll kill you all because I am the Dark Phoenix.
You should.
And I didn't want to insult the Dark Phoenix, so I wanted to survive this encounter.
It's very good to placate her. I get it.
See, dear friend, he's known me for a while.
One of your adopted sons.
That's right. He's one of my idiot children.
My fake mom.
So, Andrew, this is the first time that you've been on a Graphically Novel production, and we have kind of a tradition here where we have our guests, the first time that they're on, explain their history with comic books. So, floor is yours.
Okay, so there's a lot to this, actually. My dad is pretty much my reason I got into comics. When I was a young kid, he actually had a lot of these graphic novels, and it was like Bring On the Bad Guys or all the first whatever issues of like Iron Man, Doctor Strange, so on and so forth. And so like I read those as a kid, but then growing up, my dad, because with me being dyslexic and stuff and having a hard time reading, he and I would sit down and read the comics together, and he would read them in bombastic voices and stuff like that, and like make it almost like a living cartoon while he's reading them to me. It was one of the most biggest highlights of my life is my dad just sitting next to me. I was cuddled up with him and he was reading me comics. It was great.
That's awesome.
I mean, that's pretty badass because like when I was sitting around with my dad doing stuff, it was either like we were underneath a machine working on it, or we were sitting side by side on the couch watching daytime TV shows like Geraldo or Sal and Jesse Raphael.
My dad, I remember one of the first kind of series we got into was called Operation Galactic Storm. If you guys were familiar with that, back in the day, was the Kree versus the Shi'ar and the Avengers in the middle of it, correct?
Oh yeah, the Kree Shi'ar War. Yeah,
correct. So I pick up a comic out of the blue, out of a jewel, okay, and that was like part 5 of whatever. So my dad's reading, and he's like, "Oh no, this isn't gonna do." So my mom, my dad were like the huntsmen about finding every freaking issue of that, right? And so me and my dad, we read the whole thing. And then like I was actually talking to him beforehand because I told him I was going to be on. And I wanted to know what was his favorite comic series we read together. And that was, he said the Infinity Gauntlet, but I remember it was the Infinity War actually. And it was because we actually didn't read the beginning. We didn't read the first one. We read the sequel, of course. And we read everything, front to back, all the tie-ins, everything. It was one of the coolest things I've ever done. And I remember that Christmas, he bought me an Infinity War poster. So you have all the heroes on there and stuff like that. You got Magus and Adam Warlock fighting over the Infinity Gauntlet. Anyways.
That is awesome.
And it's super cool that you talked to your dad right before the show. It's just like, yeah, that's awesome.
I told him, I said, I'm not going to try to make him cry, but I'm going to, because he's going to listen to this, but he's the most influential person in my whole life, and I love him to death. Jen's actually met my father, too.
Yep.
So.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, I totally feel the Hunter vibe. So I've said it before on the show, but one of the first reintroductions in comics that I got into was, there was a garage sale in the 90s. I was in high school, and I picked up parts like 3, 5, and 7 of Maximum Carnage, and like, you know, it was out, but like I used to just duck into comic stores and be like, do they have the parts that I'm missing? And I was down to like, I think it was just issue 6 was the only one I was missing. And
oh wow.
I think that was the first time I ever ordered a comic off the internet, because like eBay was just starting to become a thing. And I picked it up for like, yeah, I picked it up for like $2 and $1 shipping.
Oh yeah, and like I'm very technologically savvy, as we all know from me getting into the chat. I read all my comics now digitally, and so that's really helped me out a lot, being reconnected with comics. Like that's how I read Sandman a couple years back, and that's actually, I'm currently reading Fables actually right now, which is an amazing series in its own.
Oh, it's a fantastic series. Fables. Really Fables is one of those that I want them to hurry up and make it into a show, so that we can do it for an episode on it.
Well, maybe we could. There's a video game.
Well,
Wolf Among Us.
Yeah, Wolf Among Us.
We could talk about Wolf Among Us, because like the thing is that's a great way to get people into the comic, if you ask me, because I actually played Wolf Among Us first to then start reading Fables.
Oh yeah, got it.
No, it's fantastic. Yeah, there's some like that. Like the other video game example of that is The Darkness, which was a spin-off kind of Witchblade. Totally cool. But there were 2 video games of The Darkness where you were actually Jackie and wielding the darkness, and you had the little goblin guys following you around. It was awesome.
Yeah, I have a few recommendations for you that I'll send you later if you're liking Fables.
Oh, of course. Well, if you recall though, remember, didn't I gave you a graphic novel, like when we first started hanging out, you and I forget what it was, but I handed it to him, like, you got to read this. I don't think it was Dark Knight, was it?
No, I remember that, but I don't remember what it was, but I do remember that you gave me something to read. Yeah,
I love comics. Comics is like the best way to have is like a good way to kickstart your own imagination and stuff like that. You know, it's one of to me, it's one of the most great forms of storytelling. And like, you know, as we get into your guys' show, like the Captain America, What If, that was beautiful. I was dumbfounded how good that was. But, what do you call it? I love comics, and I think it's a good way to get people into reading and all that kind of stuff. Because eventually, you know, my dad and I stopped reading comics, and I started reading them on my own, and it did help with my reading level and stuff like that. So
that's fantastic, and I do hear that a lot. Usually, it's not about dyslexia, but it's usually about getting kids interested in reading, and that comics were kind of their gateway. So they started on X-Men, Spider-Man, whatever, but then the first novels that they picked up, I've also heard it with gaming. So like the first novels that kids picked up were like the Dragonlance Chronicles, because they played D&D, you know?
It's funny you mentioned that, because I actually didn't play D&D. I was at Borders Books with my mom, and I had to read a book for high school. And she's like, oh, look at this, a dragon man fighting this dragon. I'm like, oh, this is cool. And it was the Doom Brigade, a Dragonlance kind of crossover novel. And
nice.
Like so anyways, so yeah, I get what you're talking about.
So, well, thank you for that. And we are here to discuss What If. And I have, usually I kind of fly by the seat of my pants. Don't tell anybody.
Sure.
But
I actually used to be so structured.
Right.
Now
you
just kind of let yourself go.
I have a structure for this one on purpose. And that is because I want to discuss the show first and then go back into the comic. I grew up with these comics. I used to collect these comics. I have a bunch of them upstairs. This particular kind of collection that we used was volume 3. There are many, many omnibuses. This one is 470 some pages long. It's got a bunch in there. For this, we only were required to read 3. And that is What If Captain America Were President? What if what if Phoenix had not died, and what if Wolverine killed the Hulk? They're all in issue 3, and I picked that on purpose because this was the omnibus that first of all, what if Phoenix never died is probably one of the most popular What If comics that was ever, because the Dark Phoenix saga was huge, and we'll get there, Bear.
Yeah,
we'll get there.
Do we have to?
But the other is because I didn't have any of the ones that are in this. and I was so familiar with a bunch of them. Like, and they go crazy, kind of like the show does. So, like, one of my favorite issues is what if Rogue possessed the powers of Thor, where she's worthy of having the hammer and becomes the new Thor. There were a bunch of them. There was like,
what if she doesn't need the damn hammer and she just sucks all of Thor's powers out of it?
There's that too.
Does she get a different hammer?
No, she has Mjolnir.
Okay, just checking.
Yeah.
My favorite what if is what if the Silver Surfer got the Infinity Gauntlet, actually.
That one was good.
Yeah. But go ahead and continue.
Yeah, and then the other one that I really enjoyed, but really didn't, since we haven't done a Spider-Man episode, really didn't. Well, other than Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh man,
I'm sorry. Hold on. I just have to call it out. Jen has been looking for the glasses that she took off of her face for like 20 minutes. They were in the pocket of her hoodie.
Oh my god!
It's like she was wearing them. We were waiting for you to join up so that we could get the episode
Jen is
going.
my fake mom.
I've in my defense, I had a headache, and so my brain wasn't working properly.
I've had the same problem where I've been like looking for my phone. I'll be holding my left hand and stuff like that.
Oh my god, yes.
Phone.
Yep.
Have you ever used the flashlight on your phone to find your phone? I've done that before.
Haven't gotten that bad.
That's next level.
Yep.
Oh yeah. So anyway, but other than the Rogue one, there's a two-parter called. The first one is what if Spider-Man had not married Mary Jane. And then the second part of that is what if Spider-Man had married Black Cat, and I'm a huge Black Cat fan, so like of course love that one. But going into the show, the reason I want to talk about the show first is I know that when it comes to Jen and Bear, they watched the show before. Well, I don't know, Bear, because you didn't watch it with us. Did you watch the show before you read the comic? Okay.
I watched pretty much every episode almost as it came out. It was one of the few ones that I actually did that with.
Okay. So, but then going back, I want to discuss the format that they used, because going back and reading them, I really saw the format in the TV show, and I think that's really cool.
Absolutely, because when I was reading the ones you recommended, I'm reading it, and I'm like, oh, it took me right back, like seeing like how the show works too, and the books as well. You're 100% right. It's really, really well crafted to do that.
Absolutely. So we're going to go through these in the order that they came out. I'm not going to do like a ranking thing or anything, but I just want to get people's general impressions, because these are so different. This is an anthology series, and it reminded me a lot of like less like American Horror Story, where everything kind of ties into each other. I mean, this does at the end, but while you're watching it, you're like, oh, okay, and this is another world, and this is another world. So almost like Tales from the Crypt-ish with that kind of anthology, or Twilight Zone.
The exact same thing. Same thing. I was thinking that when I was reading the book today. It reminded me of those old the horror comics, you know?
Yeah. So let's start with what if Captain Carter were the first Avenger? Andrew, what were your impressions watching it?
So I liked it a lot. And the one thing about what ifs is you have to have because like everything is usually hunky-dory, but there always has to be that big turn, right? Mm-hmm. And where she got sucked into the netherrealm, if you will, I thought that was pretty good. This one I think was a really light and flashy episode to kind of get people into it before we get into more of the darker episodes.
Jen?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I thought it was a really strong start because it took one of the more popular storylines for Marvel, the MCU as it is now, and did exactly what it's supposed to. What if this happened instead of this? And I thought it was a great introduction to what the series was about.
Fair.
I have to absolutely agree. Mainly, I was just kind of enthralled with the Captain America gender swap, because there's probably a good 20-25% of this country out there that was just annoyed as hell by that. And it did my heart good to just kind of go, somebody out here is really upset by this, and I am enjoying every minute of it, because listen, we can have women be in positions of power. We can have women be superheroes. and be just as good, if not better, at doing it than the men are.
Yeah, 1000% agreed, because the but why does Ray have to be the focus in Star Wars? Fucking fuckboys,
Right?
Yeah,
all the fuck boys and the MRAs out there, you can all just go eat a dick.
Enjoy your Zack Snyder conventions.
You like dick so much.
I'm really
you
glad
want
we're
to be in
allowed to
charge of
curse on this
everything.
podcast.
Yes,
Andrew, I'm on the podcast.
right. Yeah, this involves Jen.
I should have fucking remembered.
Yeah. I mean, I know you've met me, and I've a couple of times. I've generally been on my best behavior because I don't know you that well. You don't know Bear at all, but you know Jen, and there ain't no way. I'm not editing those episodes.
That's totally fair. To touch on what Bear was saying about the gender swap thing, I'm going to talk about one of my hobby passions is Warhammer 40K, and the fan base hates when people kit bash, put together different mouths to make the women make Space Marines look like girls. It's hilarious. So I'm all for it.
Oh yeah, the MRAs in gaming has kind of gotten out of fucking control.
Yes.
I never really assumed that those type of people existed in our hobbies until very recently, when I was just like, wait, what? Are you serious?
You know what? And specifically talking about Warhammer 40K, because I played Blood Bowl, and I have.
Oh, I love Blood Bowl.
Before they released Amazons, I had a cheerleader team that I said were all wood elves, and I had numbered them and everything else, but I wasn't using the proper figures, and I'm like, whatever.
Oh, geez.
Go fuck yourself. They have numbers. They correspond to my sheet. They say what they do. So
okay, I've given up on all miniatures. What, man? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Dick.
No, you know what? It just cracks me up because I think in general, like, we could probably do a whole long extended conversation about gaming and all what we're talking about right now. But like in general, like, you just got to let people have fun. And one of the things Warhammer or Games Workshop put up, and it was essentially like, if you're going to be a Jagoff, you're not going to be welcome here, and you're not going to be missed.
I do love Games Workshop for that. They have always taken that stance of, listen, we don't need you in our hobby if you're going to make the hobby not worth playing. So,
but now Games Workshop, you need to put out an entire army that's like an Amazon's army.
There is one.
Oh, is there? Okay, so I don't play this. I don't play their game just because I don't have the money to play that game. Sorry, Games Workshop.
No.
You know what? It's. I get it. I get it.
Yeah, no, there's the meme that I just saw that was don't do drugs, kids, because drugs will take all your money. Here, have this gaming book instead. And I'm like, it easily could be like, have this gaming figure, or have this magic card, or have this graphic novel. Right. Like, it could be like anything.
It's like Captain America sitting down, like they had those videos, right, where Captain America's like, so you've decided to take up gaming and you don't have any money anymore. You know?
Right? Yeah.
I just like the meme that's like, the gal at the bookstore that's sitting there with a stack of books that she knows she's not going to get to anytime soon. And just like, it could be worse. It could be drugs.
Yep. So my thoughts on Captain Carter to reel us back in. I really enjoyed it. I love when they take a road that parallels. And I've said it before on this show. I'm a big fan of other universes. I'm a big fan of cover songs. I'm a big fan of taking something established.
I'm a big fan of variations on a theme.
Yes, absolutely. And Captain Carter was great for that.
Yeah.
It was also almost like she understood how to use her powers better than Steve did at first.
Yeah.
Because she was doing stuff like using the shield for the truck to flip trucks and like all that other stuff. And I'm like, okay, this is cool, because Peggy originally was already like a very talented, very intelligent spy for the British.
Yeah, she was a secret agent. Yeah,
right.
It's the most sense that she's able to apply herself because now she has like the super soldier serum within her and stuff like that.
Right. And all I was missing was the scene where basically she took Erskine's notes and poured over them to be like, oh, I can do this. Yeah. And I can do this. Oh, this is the structure of the shield. This is what it does,
And And so you take that
Right.
World War One, like Cold War era spy, and now you've given them superpowers and an indestructible little dome.
Yep. Yeah. No.
It's
Fantastic.
funny. I didn't really think about it when you put it that way, because it's very much a secret agent versus a soldier, where Steve Rogers just wanted to get to the front line and fight, and Peggy decided that she was going to do her time, take her research to make sure she was able to actually wield herself at 100% effectiveness.
Right. I mean, she did want to get further, but she was, as opposed to Steve, who, he was sidelined a bit just to generate like war bonds and things.
Sure.
Peggy was just held back because she was a woman and couldn't go to the front lines.
Well, I found it really interesting that they didn't, like, Steve was still involved. He was still involved in the missions, which was a huge difference because Peggy wasn't.
Right.
She was, she did stuff, but she was not as, involved in the front line because she was a woman, because it was the 1940s, but
right.
Steve
And how
was
interesting
still
Howard
there.
Stark creates the Hydra stopper for Steve, but he wouldn't do that for Peggy.
Right.
Well,
So
and so there were some fantastic parallels between something that was not required for this, because it only in background stuff really applies, but that is the Agent Carter show, which I found the first season amazing. I need to go back and try the second season again because I fell off of it. And it eventually becomes a thing in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but Stark working with Peggy is a thing in that.
Yes.
And also, Bradley Whitford's character that's in the What If episode is in the original one-shot, which came out with Captain America, the First Avenger, about like the background stuff of Peggy and how the government was working with that and how they saw Steve and everything. And Bradley Whitford was an integral character in that, but almost nobody saw it. I mean, you can find it on Disney Plus now, but the fact that they took Agent Carter and they took this one shot and they took Captain America First Avenger and they merged it all into this What If. I mean, you could blink and miss it and you don't even necessarily, you're like, oh, okay, cool. Bradley Whitford, that's his voice. He's in this. That's fantastic. But not knowing that all those pieces exist is so great. And I think that Marvel post Disney acquisition has done this extremely well.
Yeah.
Where
it's go ahead.
All I was going to say is where no matter how much of the media you can consume just a little bit, or you can consume everything that comes out. There's something in there for you.
Correct. And I'm gonna be very admitted to it. I was one of those people like, oh, they're gonna destroy Marvel because they got bought and all that kind of stuff. And for your listeners, I recant on that. I love the fact that Disney has done everything that they did for Marvel. There's no gun against my head from the mouse or anything like that.
The moment that I made that admission, and I've said it on this show before, is Guardians of the Galaxy was coming out, and our friend Lucas Green was like, I love Guardians of the Galaxy. You got to go see this movie. It's going to be so good. And I was like, I've read Guardians of the Galaxy comics. I hate space Marvel. There's no way they're going to do this right. It's Disney, And I went and saw it. We walked out of that theater, and the first thing I did was call Lucas and apologize and say, yeah, I was very, very wrong.
Lucas, did you mark that on your calendar?
He did. Yeah, he sure did. But anyway, moving on. What if T'Challa became Star-Lord? I'll start with Bear on this one. What did you think of this?
This was the only one that I was just kind of like, okay, alternate reality, but yeah, T'Challa's cool. Is T'Challa really this cool? Did he really just convince Thanos just to stop and now just be a background character that just kind of randomly talks about genocide? Like,
so too far for you?
It's like, I don't know if it was too far. It was just like, that was just like one character that was just like, yeah, T'Challa's cool, but is he really that cool? I don't think he's really that cool. I don't think when you get swiped away from Earth in your early teens that you are that good of a diplomat. That's really the only problem with it. Otherwise, the rest of the story, super cool. Down with it. And I was just like, you could have just not put Thanos in the background of this whole thing, and I think I'd have been fine with it.
Andrew?
I think it's one of my favorite What If episodes, and I actually disagree with you. T'Challa is that cool to convince Thanos to put down the gauntlet and stuff like that. And it should have been what if a better person went to space? And the thing is like you got to realize him being a teenager, but he's a teenager that's going to be king. He's probably been trained very much so, and like the environment that he was nurtured and natured in brought him up to that. I actually really liked that, in my opinion. And I love the fact that we had almost everyone back from Guardians of the Galaxy and from Black Panther and stuff like that. And for me, Black Panther is one of my favorite superheroes. And like being able to hear Chadwick Boseman, one last time do that role was really touching for me, and stuff like that. But I do believe he's actually that well versed in being able to convince Thanos of that. And I think that's supposed to prove the point that this is how good T'Challa actually is as a person, And when we first get introduced to him in the MCU, he's driven by revenge. Anyway, go ahead.
No, absolutely valid points.
Yep.
It does go back to Civil War, which am I the only one with the block in my head that I'm like, no, there's no way that Black Panther and Spider-Man were introduced in the same movie together. They're
100% introduced in the same movie together.
I know, but like I have this block where I'm like, no. Black Panther was in something earlier, right?
No,
right?
Listen, yes, that movie should have been bigger.
Yeah.
That should have not been a 2-part movie. That should have been a 3-part movie.
Well, Civil War? Civil War was a 1-part movie.
I apologize. I keep thinking yeah. Anyways,
but
that should have been at least a 2-part movie.
Like I look back on the T'Challa in Civil War when we first meet him, and you're absolutely right, because we meet him, we see him, and then his father dies. Like it's pretty immediate. So we only see until Black Panther, we don't see T'Challa as level-headed and
we
all the
don't
things
have
that he
any
is.
background on him at
Right.
all. And I think
T'Challa. Oh, go ahead, Jen.
I think that, this what if, like you said, Andrew, it's sort of like what happens when the person who's taken away from Earth has a background and of a solid education and a solid, understanding of who he is and what he is to do in the world, like what his role is, because he's been brought up to be the next king,
right?
And his parents have taught him to be good and kind and fair and, try and balance the scales for the people who can't do that for themselves.
That was good word usage of balance the scales because of Thanos. And I do believe the best way you could defeat Thanos, if you're not going to, go back in time and get the Infinity Gems to kill him, is you have to beat him within a debate.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what that is actually what he says, which is the main argument all the time against the whole Thanos idea of wiping out people was, okay, but you had the power to just double resources.
Right.
And so it's a resource management thing instead of a people management thing, which really either or.
Sure.
Honestly, easier to double the resources because you don't need
all the stones.
You don't need the Mind Stone to do it.
Yeah. Right.
Correct.
But Jen, do you have any additional thoughts on the episode? I know you chimed in a little bit in reactions.
Yeah, I mean, this one was one of my favorites as well, and I think it was because of all of the characters that got pulled into the story, but it was also the story itself. It was everything that I enjoyed about Guardians of the Galaxy. Kind of the heist movie feeling, but just pulling all these characters in unexpected ways, which is the basis of What If.
So my first thing of why I really enjoyed this episode is just Howard the fucking Duck. Howard the Duck.
I forgot.
Howard the Duck. Voiced by Seth Green, who also voiced Howard the Duck in the Guardians of the Galaxy post-credit scene. He will be Howard the Duck moving forward in the MCU.
Did he also? I can't remember. Did he also do the Howard the Duck? He did also do the Howard the Duck in the other What If episode that we're going to talk about here in a couple minutes.
Yes.
Yep.
And stay tuned for Howard the Duck when my brother shows up again.
That's right. Later this season
to talk about Howard the Duck.
Yep. But the other one is in Thanos was one of my examples, but it's T'Challa's how he brought out the best in people.
Yeah.
Yondu's a great example.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to go all the way to Thanos. You could just look at Yondu. Yondu was who he was at the end of the second Guardians of the Galaxy movie, where he has that reciprocity with his adopted son, where the son isn't being rebellious or isn't being a dick about it. T'Challa is fully acknowledging it and being like, you are a trusted person. You're in my life. I value you, because T'Challa was raised in an environment where everything wasn't held in. He wasn't raised in the United States. He was raised in Wakanda, where people have things like mental health and, and they
Mental
understand
and they don't stigmatize mental health care.
Right. And they don't stigmatize telling somebody that you love them.
Yes. Even platonically. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And so T'Challa, and that is the key that I thought. I didn't think it was the debate part of it with Thanos, although that obviously was a part of it, but his relationship with Nebula and his relationship with everyone around that table when you really get the scene of his crew.
I didn't have a problem with most of that. I didn't have a problem with Yonda. I figured even 13-year-old T'Challa can talk Yonda into, an emotional evolution. Yondu, sorry. Talk him into an emotional evolution more quickly than would have happened in the rest of the MCU. All the rest of that, at that age, because I think, so he was only, what would they go for his age in that particular episode? Because he was nabbed at 13. And then when they finally get in, he's in his...
It was 10 years.
Was it 10 years?
Yeah.
Okay, so even at 23, I just don't know, even running around with the Ravagers, I don't know that he's picked up enough actual life experience to talk Thanos out of that. And that's just...
I vehemently disagree, because it's like we missed 10 years of a person's life. And if you look at the Marvel universe, the comic book universe 616, it's only 3 years have gone by since Spider-Man emerged or some nonsense like that. So he's had 10 years of hard living as a Ravager, plus being king, and you can tell that T'Challa cares about each and every person, like Josh was discussing, because he has a relationship with everybody. And if you go back to the first part of it, where he's stealing the thing, and the guy was like, "Oh my God, you're Star-Lord," blah blah blah. He didn't get right with me. He's like, "No, yeah, you can come with me."
Right.
And I get that, but I just also think that he also had 10 years of hard living with the Ravagers, but he also had 10 less years of life with his father to reinforce those values.
Well, I think it goes beyond that, though, because he basically took, what you see is he's created a legend around himself. So he took the Ravagers and what they were doing, but aimed them towards good instead of just stealing for money and whatever.
Sure, turn them into the Robin Hoods.
Basically.
Yeah.
And so
as they mentioned Robin Hood within the episode.
Right. Yeah. So I think that he took what he had learned in his first 13 years and honed it. That's kind of what I was seeing.
Well, and I don't think that is something that we will resolve, but I do enjoy that we had both of those points of view, because other people may think the same thing. I will admit, I was like, meh. It didn't break my suspension of disbelief, but it stretched it.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, but I'm enjoying what's happening with Thanos, so I'm gonna keep going.
Yeah, that's basically where I went to. I was just like, I'm not so cool with it, but it's funny, so I'm just gonna let it ride. Right.
Right. Because like you mentioned, the genocide jokes throughout, he would start talking about his plan and people would be like, so genocide.
Yeah, so genocide.
So your plan was legitimately genocide, which is the proper way to do that. If you want to quote unquote redeem Thanos in this environment, you have to have people calling him out. And I do like that he didn't.
Oh yeah.
totally give it up and be like, okay, well, I gave up my plan. No, he's still thinking about it because he devoted so much time
and he
to
talks
it.
about that specifically. He's like, still think it's the best plan, like still might go after this.
Right. So moving on, because we're only going to episode 3. What if the world lost its mightiest heroes? Jen, I'm going to start with you on this.
Which one was
where
this
all the
one?
Avengers die
Ant-Man.
Oh my god.
Oh, right. Okay.
because Hank Pym kills them all.
I really thought it was a good one. It was a really good mystery. Like, who is doing this? How are they doing this kind of thing? I think that's why, I know we're not going to talk about the next one, but I think that the third episode was the reason I was a little underwhelmed for the Doctor Strange episode.
Oh, okay.
Because I thought it was really good. It was really powerful. It was like, oh my God, like the others were like, oh, this is an interesting thought experiment, whatever. But that one was the one where it was like, oh shit, this would totally change everything in this world. If all of the Avengers died, that would be pretty big thing.
Fair. I actually got stuck on that for a minute too. Like, I should have known better. But in the end, I was just like, shit, they actually pulled out Pym. I was just not expecting that at all.
Michael Douglas actually voicing him too, which blew me away.
Seriously. So I was just like, part of it was kind of like, how do I feel about what they did to all these different characters, and like how are all of these Avengers getting the jump? Somebody's getting the jump on them. It's got to be somebody that's super smart and like super capable, and oh shit, oh fuck, yeah, no, okay, I'll let that go, because no one expects the Hank Pym Inquisition,
right? Andrew,
if I recall right, he was in the Yellow Jacket outfit at the end.
He was, in fact, which is a comic book nod. It's not so much because Yellow Jacket,
To kind of touch on that though, it really, because they're never going to highlight the domestic abuse Hank Pym put on to his wife, Janet.
True.
And so, but he has that dual personality identity where he becomes Yellow Jacket. So, that's the biggest nod you'll ever get to Hank Pym being kind of a piece of shit. And
also because if you ever touch Michelle Pfeiffer on screen, I will end you.
Oh, yeah, right, exactly, 100%. But overall, it was a great mystery piece, and it really, I think what the thing we're missing is it really highlights how good Black Widow was as a character, because she was the one that was investigating this stuff and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, Nick Fury is cool and all that kind of stuff. And I did it's one of the big problems I had with these What If episodes is I just want to watch more of what's going on. And because at the end of that episode where he finds Captain America, he calls Captain Marvel and stuff like that, I want to see the next story of that,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. This was one of the ones that I wish they would have continued as they started to pull everything together, that they would have taken more from this world. Because I agree, it was super cool, especially seeing Captain Marvel at the end. And the only kind of minor thing that I have is it's all about hope, and Fury didn't get that immediately.
Yeah.
Anyway. So what if Doctor Strange lost his heart instead of his hands? Andrew, back to you.
What a great episode. I understand where Jen's coming from, this one underwhelmed. I feel like this really hones in what if is all about, right? Same with that one, but it's he's trying to do all these good things, and all of a sudden he's like, well, I have to get what I want, and then the thing turns as it is against him, because that's the whole thing about what if books, right? They turn bad stuff's going to happen in the end,
right?
And this is the first time we could see Jeffrey Wright really get those acting chops in stuff as well, and Jeffrey Wright and Benedict Cumberbatch acting together, I'll take that any day of the week.
Fair. I mean, in retrospect, after watching the whole series, yes, this was entirely necessary. I do agree that it was a tad bit underwhelming with the initial watch. But I'm also totally cool with it. I was even cool with it after watching it the first time before I had seen everything and saw how it tied in. Because it's a what if. You know what? What if all the stories aren't super cool? What if in the end, Doctor Strange is just kind of a selfish douche from beginning to end. This is what you get. Do you want demons? This is how you get demons.
Right. Jen?
As I said, I was kind of underwhelmed by this, but I saw as the series progressed why this needed to happen and how it kind of built up to where the series went. The other thing that I was thinking about was is it the Spider-Man movie that Doctor Strange?
Man, it's the multiverse.
Yeah.
Well, Doctor Strange 2, and
Yeah.
then there's No Way Home coming out, and I think Doctor Strange is going to be involved in both of them. Yeah.
Well, whatever the one is, the trailer where he's not really acting like himself.
That's No Way Home.
No Way Home. So, like, I was thinking about that when I was watching this. And it was like, oh, well, what if this isn't like this reality, this reality's Doctor Strange? What if this is a different Doctor Strange?
Right. Yeah. What if they're pulling in the what ifs?
Yeah. What if?
Jen, you and I had the discussion after we watched this for the first time. I think both of us were a little underwhelmed. However, at the time, I compared this episode to the Burgess Meredith episode of Twilight Zone, where he famously just wants to read, and he just wants all the time in the world to read, and there's a nuclear attack. And he sits down, he realizes he has all the time in the world to read. He's the last person, he breaks his glasses. That is, to me, very much what this is, because this is also the element of fate will correct itself. There are certain things that no matter what you do, things are fated to happen. And it's great because I really like the idea that there is a world that is both free will, but certain things are fated. So, it was cool, but yes, again, until later in the series, I was a little underwhelmed. But as everybody else has said, I get it. Having seen the whole thing, it is an integral part of what happens later, and I can't imagine.
But still,
what if
every other reality just isn't as cool as the one you're familiar with?
Right, absolutely. Yeah, there's got to be some. So this is where we get, literally, it's called What If Zombie.
Oh.
And I'm going to start with Bear on this one.
This one was really just a joy. Even right up to, like, we've got Wanda. Wanda's a fucking zombie. Wanda is a zombie that still has all of her magic powers. Okay. I don't know how this didn't turn into, like, an extinction level event, honestly.
Right.
Like, this should have been an extinction level event. They kind of ran with it. I just kind of sat back and enjoyed the ride. I was just like, as soon as I saw Wanda still, like, glowing, I was just like, all right, well, we're just gonna roll with this because shit's about to get weird.
Andrew?
It's zombies aren't really my thing, and Marvel zombies in general I thought was played out, but being overly negative, but I got to be positive because what I liked was the survival story that they told with the remaining Avengers and stuff like that. So, sitting down and watching that for a half hour, I thought it was good for what it was, but this isn't really my genre of stuff.
Yeah, I'll agree that if these were hour-long episodes, I would have been a lot more annoyed with this one in particular. Marvel zombies never really been a thing that I've really enjoyed. I know some people do, and that's great. It's very popular, fantastic. They're gonna, in fact, do an entire thing with it that they announced yesterday on Disney Plus Day. Awesome.
Yep.
I love that for people that enjoy it.
I will watch the shit out of that.
But it is not me. Jen?
I was actually reading something recently about, and I wish I could remember, and I was just reminded of it. Otherwise, I would have done some research. But there is a movie where there are zombies, but people know what zombies are. They know how they work, how they are made, how to get rid of them, and kind of alleviates that, like, for me, zombie movie where everyone is just reacting rather than saying, okay, there are zombies. We are going to stop this.
It was on a What Culture horror video that
yes,
we just watched.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the name of the movie either, but
so
yes.
I think that you know, it was an interesting thought experiment of what if the Avengers become zombies, but it's like, really, like if one of them, I don't know, it's just like, come on.
I do like the source of it. I do like that, you know, Ant-Man and the Wasp are fucking around in the quantum realm where they don't understand dick about that whole realm.
Well, because I mean, how else do you make zombies in this universe?
Right. No, but I do like that where they're like, and then something came out.
Yeah.
You know?
And I agree with you, Josh, because like to me, like that was the best way you could actually explain zombies in a superhero universe too. I agree with you actually.
Because we've got Wakanda. Wakanda has pretty much mapped the entirety of the human genome. We know about mutants. Mutants are there, and we've pretty much mapped out the mutant gene. So we know what 99.9 of all the diseases are out there. And we've got, you know, Asgardians and shit who have traveled all of the verse that have seen all this stuff, and they've never mentioned zombies before. So where the fuck do zombies come from?
Yep. And meanwhile, we got, you know, 3 people fucking around in a realm that they don't fully understand. Perfect. I liked it.
It was a well-written story. It's just not for me. And I hope that people that did find enjoyment really enjoyed it type thing.
So moving on, what if Killmonger rescued Tony Stark? Jen?
This one was okay. It was fine. I was entertained, but I just didn't I felt like it cheapened the character, like seriously cheapened the character. I 100%
agree.
Because Killmonger was probably one of the best sympathetic villains, and this made him just a jackass.
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. There was no even echo of his motivations from Black Panther.
Nope.
Not at all.
It was just revenge.
Andrew?
This is my least favorite episode, actually. And like you guys were stressing, the fact that he doesn't feel like Killmonger, is that Ryan Coogler, you know, did a really good job directing him. And yeah, it was just a really weak episode, to be completely honest. Like I'm going to shout my buddy Justin New. He hates Killmonger, the actor that plays him, Michael B. Jordan. And like he just kind of comes off like his response about Black Panther comes off very whiny. Where him and I disagree, but when he said that, and I watched this episode, comes off very whiny and just like, oh, I'm just going to do my thing and kill everybody because I'm a jerk. I'm a whiny millennial. I'm a millennial. I can say that.
Fair. I agree with everybody else. This was not my favorite. It was an interesting thought experiment, but I absolutely saw what its purpose was by the time we got to the end.
Yeah. Because
its purpose was to introduce Killmonger as the guy that could potentially fuck up the whole, like fixing the world. You know, he's the guy that's going to step in and just be like, yeah, we needed to have a fall guy somewhere along the line besides our big bad guy. And yeah, he was kind of just there to be that guy.
Which is unfortunate. I wish they would have chosen a different villain.
I think they could have written that whole thing a lot better. I entirely think that this entire episode was there just to introduce Killmonger as the fall guy for the finale.
I agree.
What if Thor were an only child?
This one was awesome. Party Thor running around like my only problem with it is I wish he would have gotten a little bit harder reality check at the end instead of the hunky dory, like lovey-dovey, like, oh, we're just going to pat you on the head and say it was all fine. And now you owe us, basically, is where they went with that, as opposed to, I kind of wish he would have gotten spanked a little bit harder. But we did get to see Loki, if Loki was just,
grew up as an ice giant.
Yeah, grew up as an ice giant the whole time. We get to see Howard the Duck again. We get to see Howard the Duck and what's her name?
Oh,
Darcy.
Yeah,
that was. I had a little moment there. That was amazing.
No mention of a corkscrew penis, but
That's good.
It's still Disney. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, still Disney, still kids.
Jen?
Yeah, this one was entertaining. It was nice to see Captain Marvel again, but I don't know if this was really.
I just wish she would have stomped him a little harder.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people out there think that Thor is invincible, and then they got to realize that there's other people out there like
Right.
Hulk and Captain Marvel and all these other people that will just stomp Thor into the ground.
Right. Well, and it seemed like she wasn't able to until you realized that she was holding back.
Yeah.
Mhm.
She's like, no, I can't kill him.
Because she didn't want her orders were not to kill him. So yeah.
Andrew?
To me, this is a very fun episode, right? It's like to quote Dr. Sidney from MASH or something like that, take your pants off and fight on the ice type scenario, where this is just a really fun episode, right? And because it doesn't have like that what if where like there's like kind of bad like Twilight Zone type twist that they have in this. It's a fun episode, and it's just fun to kind of sit back after. I think this was after the Killmonger episode. Kind of have a nice little kind of funny jaunt into a different world, and I love it to death. Actually, it's a good episode.
I agree. It's what I describe as brain bubblegum. It's just, it's fluff. It's a fun episode of everybody just kind of, especially since, it happens between the Killmonger episode and the two-part finale, where everything's super serious and everything else. So, moving on, what if Ultron won? Andrew?
What a great episode, in my opinion. Like all these episodes have been good, minus like the Killmonger episode, in my opinion. This one was really good because like I love how Ultron became self-aware and stuff like that, and Uatu the Watcher actually intervenes and stuff like that, and they actually get to have that interaction. I mean, of course, we all wish James Spader came back and replaced his role as Ultron, but the fellow that played Ultron did a great job as well. It was a really good episode, and seeing Armin Zola back, I want that more now.
Yeah. So I'm gonna jump in just because this is the relationship between Natasha and Clint that I love.
Mm-hmm.
And it really kind of brought that back up because we haven't seen that. I mean, even the scene in Endgame or in Infinity War where Natasha sacrifices herself. I mean, that was overly dramatic for me for those two characters. Like there wasn't enough like banter.
Mm-hmm.
And this had the appropriate amount.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Now, Josh, do you believe that this is a lot more of showing, not telling? Because like in a lot of the movies, they say Natalia and Clint are very close, but this is showing us that they're very close.
Yeah. And unfortunately, we didn't get that from the Black Widow movie either. Like, and I was looking forward to that because they've always hinted at it or shown a little bit. And like, you see in Age of Ultron when they go to Clint's family's farm that the kids know Natasha. They call her Aunt Nat.
Yep. Yeah.
So that gives you a little bit of an understanding. And she is at complete calm and peace. That was probably before this episode, that was probably the best example of their relationship that I can think of. Going back to my co-host of Rec Conversations who just hates the Age of Ultron movie, I would argue that that scene is the one redeeming factor in that entire movie. But this was great, and Clint's sacrifice fantastic. Like everything that happened in this, I was invested, and that probably more than any other episode. Like I enjoyed all the other episodes. I was watching them. I was invested in this episode. Like I was not fucking around on my phone. I was not, going in and being like, don't worry about pausing it to go and get something from the kitchen. I was like, okay, for a half an hour, I'm watching this and I'm here for it. Jen?
Yeah. I liked, because I was not familiar with What If, I was like, oh, okay. So the first episodes up until this one was kind of just, this is what this is. This is what is happening. This is kind of the premise of what you're seeing. And then that one, that episode, I liked how it was like, oh, he's breaking the rules here. he's like not, the Watcher is not supposed to be this invested in what's happening.
Yep.
And so, it created the tension and the drama for the following episode. And that's the final episode after this one, right?
Yeah. This is the penultimate episode.
Yeah.
Bear?
I thought in the beginning, I was like, oh, really cool. Again, really cool thought experiment. Not my favorite storyline out of all of it. But the thought that I had once we got closer to the end of the episode, when I realized this was going to be the two-parter and the finale, was it was interesting that they tied in the fact that the Watcher watches almost destroyed the multiverse.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Because if he wouldn't have been watching that scene at that moment, that Ultron would have never figured out that there were other multiverses out there, and would have never ran off as all-powerful on his own to go take on the rest of them. Now, the fact that there wasn't anyone in any of the others that could have taken him on, or that he just didn't get to him before the Watcher was like, I have to do something about this, seems a little strange, because somewhere out there's and Ultimate Avengers Hulk that also has the Venom symbiote and managed to rip the Infinity Gauntlet off of Thanos, and Ultron can't stand up to that.
Well, and like,
because I can just start dreaming up my own what ifs, Marvel.
what about other characters like Galactus?
Right.
It's like, and he didn't run into, Ultron didn't run into anyone like that.
Well, but that's the thing that I did like about this. It didn't introduce new characters. This is MCU only.
Yes.
Okay.
They had to stay in their lane.
Right. So they stayed within their scope. I mean, I think the only character that really stretches that is Howard the Duck, who only showed up in one post-credit scene. But
you have to ask yourself, Galactus, he needs his own movie, like as the main villain.
Right. Yes.
A quick little scene, and everybody knows that they had George Lucas movie Howard the Duck. So like, and if the kids don't get, they're like, oh, it's a talking duck in the land. But like you
right.
Like Galactus or any of the other like Powers Cosmic or people, like they're gonna be like, why did it get put in this little 30-minute episode of this cartoon?
Right. I mean, and then you run into like the problem with we just saw Eternals, and no spoilers, but there's a lot. There is a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
And it's dense.
Which we're going to talk about here shortly.
Yes. So moving from there to the second part, what if the Watcher broke his oath? Andrew, I'm going to start with you.
It is. It's a good episode. It just reminds me of like just the Avengers coming together. What I really need to see now is the fallout of the Watcher breaking his oath, because as we all know, when he broke his oath in the comics about Galactus coming, there's repercussions. So I can't wait for the next season to see the repercussions. I do like that Peggy gets her happy ending. I like the Black Widow goes for the universe where Michael Douglas killed all the Avengers. And I like the fact that Doctor Strange and Uatu are like, yeah, we're cool.
Yeah, well, they've also announced a season 2 of What If. They announced it yesterday on Disney Plus Day. So hopefully that will be part of that is the repercussions. I completely agree. The other part of that is just any time that somebody says not you, Stark. Like I just oh my God, so funny. Bear?
I have to I don't know. Like honestly thought the first part of this was better than the second part.
Mm-hmm.
I have to agree with Andrew that I kind of want to see, like who's in charge of the Watcher and what happens when, what happens to the Watcher after this.
Who watches the Watchmen?
Yeah, who watches the Watchmen kind of thing. See our previous episode.
Yeah.
But I have to go into speculation mode at this point. Is what is this all a setup for? Because we have alternate timeline stuff with What If, and we know at this point that obviously, MCU hierarchy of writers is putting together a big overarching plot line. It's just what they decided to do. Is it working? Yes. Are they creating some great sagas? Yes. Do they have a really like fixed formula for all of their movies and how they go? Yes.
Am I still enjoying them?
Am I still enjoying them? Kind of, because I'm still annoyed that like Dune didn't get its its money that it should have, because Eternals was coming out, and it was just like, more people went to see Eternals in the States than went to see Dune. That seems weird. But we're not talking about Dune today. We're talking about what.
Well, I mean, maybe them Dune fans are just really angry that they're trying to not have the David Lynch version of Dune.
No, because if you watch this movie and compare it to the David Lynch movie, even the David Lynch people are just like, this was better.
I've seen both, and I love both of them.
I mean, they have their places, but we'll get into this debate at a later time, sir. You and I.
When Bear comes out to Chicago, we do our brewery tour. You have an invite, Andrew.
Absolutely, and you guys will get to meet my girlfriend IJ. She's a wonderful woman. And she likes Marvel comics and all this kind of stuff too.
Awesome, very cool.
But so I'm kind of looking at this going, what's it's speculation time for me. Is where's the next big bad guy coming from, and do they really have anybody else that's bigger and badder than Galactus? If we're stepping up from Thanos, because we've got a lot of weird timeline stuff going on. I don't know enough about comics to know who the next big bad is, but we have a ton of time because we've got Loki, which we just did an episode on, all kinds of timeline stuff. We've got What If. So where are we going to this?
See, my thought would be Kang.
I'm not familiar with.
He Who Remains from Loki.
You say He Who Remains, and I'm just like, yes, here I am, here I remain. So
He Who Remains from Loki is a version of Kang, who is Kang the Conqueror.
Okay.
Does a lot of multiverse and time
Avenger villains.
Yes,
all time. I love King the Conqueror. He is the ultimate Avengers villain.
Yeah.
Period. For me.
So what? And okay, this is the Silver Surfer.
Yeah.
Was originally the herald for
Galactus.
Okay.
The Eater of Worlds.
Yes, I know who Galactus is. Thank you.
I was clarifying, not just for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The audience.
He was mansplaining for everyone. Not just for you.
Not just me. Thank you.
Listen. Josh is got a little bit of Vince McMahon in him. He's just, use pronouns, pal.
I'm just not man spreading. So as long as I stay away from the spreading. So Jen, what did you think of the end of this series?
I thought it was good. Like I said, when like the first half of the season was it was what I expected from how you described what if was. So it was like nothing connected. It was just like, what if this happened? What if this happened?
Serial anthology, yeah.
Well, serial anthology, but also just like thought experiment. Like, what if this happened? Oh, what if this happened? But then the second half of the season was like, what if this happened here? And then this happened here. And it was like connecting dots. And we got to the end. I thought that was really good. And I think that, it leads into a second season where I expect things are going to mesh even further, where, it's like the multiverse is more interconnected than we think it is, kind of thing.
So
I also think, before you move on with that, I also think that they are giving themselves license with this, and with a second season of this eventually, to change a lot of the writing for different characters. So, and then which people will ultimately freak out about, but then they'll be able to go back and say, but this is what we did. We set up our own timeline changes. We set up our own personality changes, because listen, we don't have, I lost my mom and dad Thor anymore. Now we've got Party Thor.
So before we talk about the comic, then I was going to save this for the end, but you led me into it, so I'm going to pull it up now. Do you believe that this is a good format then to use for actors leaving? We just lost Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr., but a What If could bring in.
Oh, absolutely. I think this is a good
Peggy
format
Carter, Captain Carter now.
For characters leaving, for new characters coming in, because, we can get Captain Carter, we can get, there was another, we can get potentially a different Hank Pym.
Right.
You know, we could get miscellaneous. So we might even maybe hopefully get a real Fantastic Four movie sometime.
Right. I mean, it opens those possibilities. So Andrew, I'm going to come back to you here in a second.
Sure.
But I want to hear from Jen and Bear on, you watched the show and then you read the comic, and how much of a translation was there? Like, looking into it, can you see the bones basically of what they did with the show, or did they deviate a lot?
I'm going to be brutally honest. I wasn't really into the comic.
Okay.
It was okay. The stories were all right, but I felt like it felt like older comics that are not really my thing.
Well, they were all from the 80s, so yeah.
Right.
I mean,
so it's not really my thing. So I could see the what if, but I didn't feel like, watching the series, like the storylines they built up in the series had more of a grab for my attention than the storylines in the comic to me. They just didn't feel like, I didn't really care.
Okay. Bear?
I cared a lot about the storylines in the comic. Not all of those cares were good cares.
What if Wolverine killed the Hulk?
No, actually, that wasn't it at all.
Okay.
It was the fact that I care that anyone who wrote anything related to the X-Men in the 80s was basically the equivalent of all of the, what's the word I'm looking for? All of the dialogue of the characters was essentially chewing on the artwork. They were literally chewing on the set, because they were describing flat out, either in speech bubbles or in thought bubbles, things you could already see in the frame, in the pictures. But it wasn't like that necessarily with the Eternal stuff that we read with the Captain America for President. That wasn't as bad. So I think it's really just the X-Men, because the X-Men in the 80s was so bad. But there are things that I liked and things I didn't like. I mean, obviously, looking back on the entirety of the What If for under Disney, they had a plan that they were going with,
right,
which I'm okay with. But I was also okay with reading this volume and realizing that some of these were, hey, look, I'm the Watcher, and I'm looking into a different reality or a different timeline and seeing this thing that happened because of this divergent action. And some of them are just random stories that have never been told before, which is where the Eternals came in.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm watching the Eternals and going like, you guys are weird. You guys are just fucking weird. We can all turn into a giant brain together. That's the closest I'm going to get to a spoiler on that.
Did you watch the movie?
I have not watched the movie yet, but now after reading, I'm probably going to go back through and read the rest of the Eternals stuff in that volume, and then eventually go watch the movie and just be like, yeah, it's still weird.
Yeah.
So, Andrew, my question for you, since you had read What If before, is does it still hold up?
Honestly, I think it does, because I think what it boils down to is, like, because they're talking about like two different, like, serialized storytelling where you have a beginning, a middle, and end, and like where the television show leads into like obviously our big end climactic thing. So I was looking at it and I was like, yeah, this is really good. Like the Captain America one, like you could see a lot of parallels of celebrity, a recent celebrity that was our president and stuff like that. But like see how some wielded that for good. And the X-Men one, both X-Men ones were great. And I looked it up as you guys were discussing. Obviously we all want Chris Claremont to write the X-Men, and that's probably why that wasn't as good. But I think it does hold up. And yeah, 80s comics are bad depending on who's writing it. I always feel like comic books are always good on who's writing it. Like you go, oh, Grant Morrison's writing this, I'm gonna read it. You know, like Denny O'Neil back when he wrote Batman, Great Race Boom, all that kind of stuff. You're like, oh, I'm gonna read Denny O'Neil comics. But like you can have someone like Dennis Loveless, I think is his name, write a book and it's trash. You know, so it just depends on who's writing the book and was it speaking to of your appeals.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I still enjoy the What Ifs. Like I said, I collected a bunch of them. I still have them. They're one of the few like single issues that I kind of keep around. But normally the last question in this show or in these episodes is, will you keep reading? Before I do that, I want to bring up a couple of other what ifs that are out there and to see with this format if you're interested in them. So what if the Hulk had the brain of Bruce Banner, which we've seen several times? What if someone else had become Spider-Man? So like Flash Thompson becomes Spider-Man, and J. Jonah Jameson at one point becomes Spider-Man.
We've actually seen, what happens when other people become Spider-Man with Into the Spider-Verse.
It's true.
Which was really awesome. See our previous episode.
Yep.
What if Wolverine had killed the Hulk? Listen, I'm sure there's a what if out there somewhere. There's some alternate reality out there where Hulk is pansy enough that Wolverine, with his minuscule little muscles, could possibly slash his throat and kill him. But it's not this world, so.
What if Uncle Ben hadn't died? What if the Punisher became an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D.? And what if Magneto ruled all mutants? So basically, what if Magneto won?
I mean, we've seen what if Magneto won in some version of the X-Men movies.
Yeah. So, Jen, will you continue to read this comic?
Probably not.
Bear?
If there was newer stuff, I mean, I'll go back.
Maybe. If there were newer stuff, I didn't enjoy it was just.
So what if is revived like basically every decade or so? So like there's an 80s series, there was a 90s series, there was a 2000 series. I don't know if they've done it in the 2010s. Usually when they bring it back now, it is for a specific event.
Right.
So it's like, what if Civil War edition? So it's like, what if all these things in the Civil War?
And it's just their test market for, we're going to try something different.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand that too, even from, a marketing standpoint. It's like, yes, we can do this and then see what, how.
It's a focus group.
Yeah, basically. We're going to use our entire audience as a focus group.
Right. Well, and to go back to, this is completely an aside, but I kind of have to make this point because I'm with Bear totally on this. I don't know what kind of a magic pussy Jean Grey has, because how many characters loved her in this what if? Oh my God.
Not only her own muscles, but also her telekinetic powers.
Jesus Christ.
So she got beer flavored nipples or something?
Right? Because it's like
she's got other psychic powers too. She might be able to convince
the angel, her oldest and dearest friend who wants to kiss her all the time.
Yeah.
She's got Scott Summers, who, she loves, and Wolverine
who has the secret heart on for her.
Right.
All the time.
But then there are other characters who are just like, oh, Jean. And it's not just the men.
No.
It's what's
Storm.
her name? Storm and
Kitty Pryde.
Kitty Pryde is just like, oh, I wish I could be your friend.
Yes, Kitty Pryde desperately wants to be your friend. Storm is like her sister.
So, okay, I understand that happens. There are people that have a cult of personality, but Jean Grey
doesn't even have a personality.
Is a dish rat.
Right?
She is not like.
What?
Oh, she's so uninteresting. Why is all that attention focused on her?
She's the MacGuffin.
Oh, she's
So go on YouTube.
I don't even understand that word, but I don't care. The word I was going to use was vacuous.
Yeah, just go on YouTube and type in Jean Grey fainting. Somebody has done the master thing of all the 90s cartoon of all the times that Jean Grey fainted. It's like 7 minutes long.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, it's like hilarious.
That's worse than, when they went through, if those of you that did not know about it, if you bought the Robin Williams Live on Broadway DVD, there's an Easter egg in there in the menu, or if you just keep scrolling down, you'll eventually see the parental advisory explicit lyrics pop up, and you get to see where they edited in all the times that Robin Williams cussed, and just one after another.
Oh my God.
And that is less than 4 minutes.
Yeah.
So that was where I was going with that. Sorry, it took a minute to get there, but yeah. So all the times that Robin Williams cussed in that is less than the series where Jean Grey fainted.
Yeah. So Andrew, will you continue to be interested in going back and reading some what ifs?
I like, to be fair, I know there's a little bit of hate on the picks. I think Josh actually did have some good picks. So like, if you were like, hey Andrew, come check out this what if, I would check out that, because I would take it on your word, because usually, how you can tell someone's a good comic book snob is what they recommend, even when it's quote unquote not the better topics. And I thought the three were very good, actually, for me at least.
Okay. Yeah, when they run multiple comic book podcasts and it's kind of like their only hobby. Yeah, sure.
Hey, man, I could sit down and talk to you about 40K, and you'd be like, "Please stop." So it's all good.
No, I get it.
No, I'm going to say please stop as well.
All I know is blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne. So
I have one minis game that I play anymore, and
Star
I don't
Wars?
even. No, I'm done with that too because they went on to second edition and just they went money hungry with it. No, the only thing that I'm playing anymore is Gaslands.
which is you can play with Matchbox cars.
It's what it was designed for, was Matchbox cars. But if you go out there and do some digging in the interwebs, you can find people that have upgraded all the templates and such so that you can play this with Tonka trucks.
Oh no! Yep, that's why I got this little supernatural car.
Yeah.
Got baby. I'm gonna play some Gaslands with
Gaslands.
that. Andrew,
Also,
go ahead.
Oh, one more recommendation, because you guys are talking about what ifs, but your fans should also look into looking up Fantastic Four number 40. I think that's 44. My eyes are not good, apparently. 48. That's the actual first introduction of the Watcher. So if people want to kind of get to know the Watcher character some more, he's originally
cool.
a Fantastic Four comic. So
Awesome. Very cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for taking the time. This has been a good time.
Yeah, thanks for
having
being
me.
with us.
Absolutely.
I would love to come back, talk more comics, maybe understand technology a little bit better, and have a better setup so I don't cause for your audience.
No, all good, all good. We have seen all of the ups and downs of recording, but so tune in next time in 2 weeks when we will be discussing Spawn. We're gonna go way 90s.
Listen, it was on the list, and I was like, listen, we just got to do this and get it done with because it's a thing, and people need to know about the thing.
Yeah, we still need to watch the HBO cartoon.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
And still holds up.
It does, actually.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
But until then, take it away, Vandello.
Come with me, I'll tell a story that you might have heard before. Graphically novel, but the same old trouble. Villains always knocking at the door. Pretty pictures on the page, but nothing ever stays the same. Do 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 do. Come at me, and I'll show you something you ain't never seen before. Right or wrong, or can't we all just get along? My mask is no different than yours. Pretty pictures on the screen, but nothing's ever as it seems. Do 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 do. Hero or villain, loved or hated by millions. Maybe it's wrong, maybe it's right, but you don't want to see my back.